Not only was there no name stencilled on the window of Hobson's office door, it didn't even have a window. Angelina was disappointed. What kind of crappy detective doesn't have an office name stencil window? Instead, it was a solid beige fire door. The only thing marking it out from the beige corridor was the change in texture from beige plaster to beige wood. Same old London office in a boring building. Clearly all her effort to dress interesting had been silly. The black floaty layers and purple tights looked ridiculous against all the nothingness. Too late to change, though. She was already 5 minutes late. She knocked on the hollow, cheap-sounding door with the firmness of an adult rather than a nervous 16-year-old, or so she hoped. "Yep, come in," came the hoarse yell from inside. Angelina pushed the door open. Considering how long she'd spent staring at the thing, it floated away easily enough. The office behind was more interesting than the corridor, thankfully. Bright blue, 2 desks, a few filing cabinets, but no discarded whiskey bottles, nor a mattress round back where the detective secretly slept. "Good morning, Choip," said a deep voice. The huge man behind the larger desk leapt up, revealing a pressed black suit and straight tie. Buttoned down to a fault, this guy could be a real veteran police detective, right up to the grey peppering his short dark hair. And why was he calling her by surname? "Good to meet you. I'm John Hobson. Just Hobson is fine, though." And when she didn't immediately reply, "How are you? Good trip over?" Thanks, I'm fine. You too." She forgot to punctuate any of that, blushing as soon as it finished. Good. Well, welcome to our new work experience internship program. I hope I'll be able to show you something about the business in 2 weeks. As you can see, I've cleared a desk for you here. He gestured at the smaller one in the room, with a wedge of papers recently shoved to one end. "Looks nice." She glanced down and nodded. "Lots of room." Another silence. So, he was already standing up and hooking his jacket off the back of the chair. "I have to get moving for a lunch meeting, but I do have a job for you to get on with." Her ears pricked up, but she kept her expectations measured. She'd be filing all those papers away, wouldn't she? Or running out to buy milk. "I've noticed this social Twitter internet media thing seems to be taking off," he said, gesturing widely at the computer on her desk, as if that explained everything. "Could you create an account for me and get me some of those followers?" Angelina blinked. "I'm sorry?" "Well, you know, I've just been paid to buy office. I want to be modern. And your lot seem to be familiar with that sort of thing." "My lot? What do you mean, my lot?" No. Hobson spun round, nearly whirling her across the room. "Not Asians. Teenage girls." "Oh, right." Depressingly, she was relieved he'd even noticed she was Asian. "Well, sure, I'll see what I can do." "Thanks, Joy." He shrugged his massive coat on, composure back in place. "Just a couple of hundred should do. Cheers, running late, back in an hour." With that, he waved and dashed out the door, and then popped his head back round. "Oh, could you also run out and get some coffee? We're running low." Angelina nodded and kept her sigh inside until he'd definitely gone. This office was the size of a rich person's cupboard. Picking up the coffee took a few minutes. The hardest part was checking out his machine and working out what type to buy. Now she was an intern, Angelina knew she had to do these menial tasks, so she swallowed her pride and went to Tesco. Not long after, guzzling a pack of dirt-cheap cardboard crisps, she plonked herself down in front of her computer. She had a job to do, so resisted the urge to head straight for Facebook and complain about her negligent boss. Instead, she went on Twitter and got to work. She typed, she schmoozed, she strived, she read blog posts about social media success, many of which made her feel a bit angry. Finally, several tweets and retweets later, something clicked. And shortly later, so did the door to their office as Hobson returned. His lunch meeting ended at a reasonable time and left him completely sober, which was again both reassuring and disappointing. When did she get to snort corpses and dive deep into the underground? Instead, she had a presentable, clean-shaven, punctual detective without a visible drinking problem. She should have been more specific on the form. "So, Troy," Hobson said, his jacket flopping back over the chair, "am I trending yet?" He pronounced trending like it was the name of an alien planet. Sort of," she said. "Sort of. Well, you've got 353 followers." Angelina broke off midstream as a rectangular email notification popped up. "Well, 354 now, but I had to say some stuff to get them." Hobson fiddled with his own computer, not really paying much attention. "Yep, what kind of stuff?" "Well, I tried just creating an account and following people, engaging with other detectives, but it wasn't working much." She could hear herself talking faster in response to his blank stares. So I found an interesting murder case, and I said if you got enough followers, you'd totally solve it for free. And it sounded like a better idea at the time, she added silently, as rolling her chair away from Hobson as his face turned red and he stood up, tie flapping wild. It was hard not to be scared when a man bigger than the room he was sitting in started yelling at you. You did what? Well, at least he'd noticed her. Do you have any idea how shitty that is? What if the press find out? What if the victim's family find out? How do you know I even can solve it? And how am I meant to pay my rent? I don't know, I'm sorry, I just wanted to get it right, and I just... Angelina inhaled deep and snorted by accident. I might have said something else too. Oh, God. Yeah, if we get up to 400 followers, you have to fight a wolf. The email indicator leapt up again. Only 45 to go. With a speed you wouldn't expect from a man of his size, Hobson turned off his monitor and pointed to the tiny space in front of his main desk. Go on, Troy. He jabbed the finger again. Plant yourself there and go over what the hell's going on. Quick as you like. Well, you know Twitter? No. Right. To her relief, the phone on his desk rang, but her respite was short-lived. Hobson picked it up, listened for a few seconds, then said, "Yep, no comment," and then beeped it back off again. Joy, you were saying? Well, she took a deep breath, knowing this was her moment. I just started an account and it wasn't going that well. Then I had this idea, and I started this hashtag, which was hashtag Hobson versus Wolf, which I thought was really good, and people started getting really into it. Hobson held up a hand, eyes tightening as if suffering the beginnings of a headache. Okay, pretending for a moment that I know what a hashtag is. People really went for this? You suggested I fight a wolf and that was it? Well, a couple of people seemed to think it was insensitive, but mostly they seemed really keen. We were even at the bottom of the UK trending topics for a few minutes. So you see, she finished, determined to end on a high, I did exactly what you asked for. Angelina was sure his head raised up for a few moments when she mentioned the trending, twitching like a dog who'd smelt some appealing food. But sadly the disapproving scowl soon reasserted itself. Okay, so I think we've gone as far as we can with the how. Can we move on to why you thought this was a good idea? Dragging out an inhale to collect her thoughts, Angelina gave it a go. I don't know if you've done much research into online marketing and social media in the past, Mr. Hobson. I told you, Choi, just Hobson, it's fine. Soon, Angelina thought, he might ask permission to call her Choi, because somehow he made her name alone sound slightly racist. But this wasn't the time to file a complaint. Okay, well, everyone else has been online for quite some time, she said. You see, you have to engage with people in a way they understand, in a way that's funny and catches their interest. Right. So what I was doing, I think, is trying to make you seem relevant and engaging. You know, like someone who gets up and solves crime, instead of just going to lunch and sounding bored. Tap into modern events in a way that draws attention to your business, like, hello, you've all got this problem, and I, John Hobson, am the solution, because I fight the bad guys, and I'll protect you from, say, the wolf. Because everyone loves Sherlock Holmes or whatever, so you've got to be that guy, do you see? Sounds awful, Hobson shook his head. Honestly, you kids watch too much television. Her eyes were now stuck open. How was he not excited by any of this? Speech seemed pointless in the face of this grand apathy. The skies greyed over, no doubt in sympathy at the boring office nightmare she was trapped in. So much for her plans to tease her friends doing boring admin office placements with her exciting detective life. She might call them up and beg for a spare desk. And then another phone rang. Hobson reached back, rustled around in the tiny space left behind his desk, and plucked a round, dusty, wired receiver out of nowhere. He had the decency to mutter, "Internal line," at her before talking straight into it. "Hello? Hi, Will. What's up? Delivery?" It all snapped into place as Angelina remembered Will, the good-looking receptionist she'd met on the way up. She'd thought he ought to be older, not to mention scarier, to be the front door guy on such a terrifying block. Hobson was still talking. "You saw what on Twitter?" "Oh, yeah, I guess that is us." No, I'm not going to fight a wolf. My work experience girl got a little carried away." He laughed into the phone, still somehow sounding bored at the same time. "But yeah, it's an interesting case, isn't it? You know, I guess it captured our imagination. Well, I don't want to tell you this much this early in the investigation, but, keep watching the Twitters, I suppose." Well, Angelina stewed. This internship was meant to prepare her for the world of work, and now she knew how it felt when her boss took credit for her effort. "Yep," he continued. "I suppose that was in bad taste. I'll have a word with Choi about overstepping her mark in the future." Oh, now she was a heartless bitch too. Her hand flickered, wanting to grab the phone and apologise to Will personally. "Okay, well, thanks for calling, Will. Cheers." He replaced the handset slowly. Tapped his desk. Eventually looked back up at Angelina. "So, real people can see you're tweeting?" "Real people? Real people? Like Will downstairs? Real people as opposed to internet people and trolls and whatever?" Yes, Mr. Hobson, the people on the internet are definitely veal. Interesting. On that, he stood up, flicking his coat from the back of his chair. I suppose we'll take a look at this murder, then. You can brief me on the way. Hobson was moving across the tiny office, barely leaving room for her to stay standing. Determined to go with the flow, Angelina grabbed her own jacket and headed for the door behind him. Hey, Hobson, do we have to walk out past the main reception desk? The one where Will sits? Yep, that's the front door. Can we maybe use a back door? Right. Never mind. Thank you.